License and registration now. The black woman in the driver's seat kept her hands visible on the steering wheel. Her voice stayed calm. Good evening, officer. May I ask why I was stopped? Did I say you could talk? The flashlight hit her face like a slap. Fancy car for a black woman? Let me guess. Stolen, or did your baby daddy buy it for you? His partner snickered. A crowd slowed down to watch. Phones appeared. Someone started live streaming, but not one person stepped forward. Not one voice said, "Stop. People like you don't belong in this neighborhood." He leaned closer. You need to learn your place. He didn't notice the man in the passenger seat. He didn't see the strange smile slowly spreading across that man's face. Not anger, not fear, just curiosity. Like watching a mouse walk into a trap. In a few minutes, Officer Travis O'Connor would discover that the black man he ignored held his entire career in his hands. Everything was perfect. The black Cadillac Escalade glided down Peachtree Road like a shadow cutting through the golden Atlanta sunset. Behind the wheel, Dr. Aaliyah Thompson allowed herself a rare moment of peace. Her surgical scrubs were still damp from long hours of life and death decisions. Her shoulders ached, her eyes burned from exhaustion. But she was smiling. It had been a good day, a long day, but a good one. In the passenger seat, her husband Darius sat with a tablet propped against his knee. The screen glowed blue in the fading light, illuminating the strong lines of his face. He was tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of man whose presence commanded attention without saying a word. When he walked into a room, people noticed. When he spoke, they listened. There was something about the way he carried himself, back straight, eyes always scanning, every word measured and deliberate, that suggested authority, power, control. But right now in this car, he was just Darius, just the man Aaliyah had married in a small church on the south side of Atlanta, just the husband who still brought her coffee every morning and fell asleep during movies every Friday night. Rough shift? He asked without looking up from his tablet. Aaliyah laughed softly. You could say that. Rough didn't begin to cover it. The day had started with an emergency page. A 6-year-old boy named Caden had arrived with a heart murmur that was getting worse by the minute. Aaliyah had him in surgery, his tiny chest open on her table, his life literally in her hands. He was stable. He was awake and asking for ice cream. The second surgery was harder. A premature baby, just 2 pounds 3 ounces, whose heart wasn't pumping correctly. The procedure required instruments so small they looked like toys. One wrong move, one tremor in her fingers, and that baby would never see her first birthday. The baby was breathing on her own. Her parents wept in the hallway when Aaliyah gave them the news. But it was the third surgery that stayed with her, the one that would keep her up at night for weeks to come. A 7-year-old girl named Lila. She had been playing soccer when she collapsed on the field. Her lung had spontaneously collapsed, a rare condition called tension pneumothorax. Without immediate intervention, she would have been dead within minutes. By the time Lila reached Grady Memorial Hospital, she was barely breathing. Her skin had turned blue. Her parents were screaming in the waiting room, begging anyone who would listen to save their daughter. Aaliyah had scrubbed in immediately. Hours of surgery, hours of fighting against death itself, hours of refusing to let go of that little girl's life. When Lila's eyes fluttered open in the recovery room, when she asked in a weak voice where her mom was, when she smiled that confused, groggy smile, Aaliyah had walked calmly into the hallway, found an empty supply closet, and cried until she couldn't breathe. That was the job. That was always the job. carrying the weight of other people's lives, bearing the responsibility of being the last line of defense between a child and death. 2,000 children. That's how many lives, Doctor, Aaliyah Thompson had saved in her career. 2,000 tiny hearts that kept beating because of her hands. 2,000 families who got more time together because she refused to give up. Tonight, those same hands gripped the leather steering wheel of her husband's $90,000 car. The usual, she told Darius, keeping her voice light. Saved a few lives, nothing special. He chuckled. It was their private joke. In the Thompson household, saving lives was just another day at the office. Darius's phone buzzed on the center console. The screen lit up with a name, Deputy Chief Ramirez. He glanced at it, then silenced the call without answering. Aaliyah raised an eyebrow. Work? Personnel issue. Someone I need to deal with. She noticed the way his jaw tightened when he said it, the way his fingers gripped the tablet a little harder. Whatever he was reading, it bothered him. On the screen, partially visible, she caught a glimpse of a file header. O'Connor T. Complaint Review. She didn't ask. After years of marriage, she knew when Darius needed space to process something, he would tell her when he was ready. What Aaliyah didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that her husband had been reviewing complaints against Officer Travis O'Connor for the past week. 17 complaints, years of documented misconduct, excessive force, racial profiling, unlawful searches, intimidation, planting evidence. Every single complaint had been dismissed. Every investigation had been closed without action. The pattern was clear to anyone who bothered to look. Someone had been protecting Travis O'Connor. Darius had traced the protection to its source. Sergeant Patrick O'Connor, Travis's uncle, the supervising officer who signed off on every dismissal, who buried every complaint, who made sure his nephew never faced consequences. A meeting was scheduled. Internal affairs, the topic. Termination proceedings against Officer Travis O'Connor. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Darius set the tablet aside and reached for his wife's hand. His fingers were warm, familiar, safe. Tonight is ours, he said softly. Everything else can wait. She squeezed back. I'm holding you to that. In the center console, almost invisible beneath a stack of napkins and a worn paperback novel, sat a black leather badge holder. The gold shield inside caught the fading sunlight whenever the car turned a corner. Chief of Police, Atlanta Police Department, Darius A. Thompson. Darius never wore it off duty. Tonight, he was just a husband, just a black man in an expensive car driving through one of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhoods. That was exactly how the world would see him. The blue and red lights appeared in the rearview mirror. Aaliyah's hands moved before her brain caught up. Muscle memory, survival instinct, the choreography of being black in America. Interior light on, window down, hands visible on the steering wheel. No sudden movements, no reaching for anything, no giving anyone an excuse. We're being pulled over, she said quietly. Darius looked up. His eyes went to the mirror, then to his wife, then back to the mirror. You weren't speeding. Does that matter? The question hung in the air like smoke, heavy, suffocating. They both knew the answer. In years of driving, Aaliyah had been pulled over many times. Never once had she received a ticket. Never once had she broken a single law. But she had learned. Oh, how she had learned. The patrol car had been parked at a gas station. It pulled out the moment Aaliyah's Escalade passed by. No radar gun, No traffic violation, just a black woman in an expensive car. Darius's hand drifted toward the badge in the console, then stopped. A thought crystallized. A decision formed. He could end this before it started. One flash of that badge, and whatever officer was approaching would go pale. Apologies would pour out. The whole thing would disappear. But then what? Then this would become a story about privilege, about how the police chief got special treatment, about how the rules didn't apply to important people. What about everyone else? What about all the other black women who got pulled over on this road? The ones who didn't have a chief in the passenger seat? Darius wanted to see. He needed to know. What would this officer do when he thought no one important was watching? So he left the badge where it was, and he waited. Officer Travis O'Connor approached the Escalade like a predator who had spotted wounded prey. His boots struck the pavement with deliberate weight. His flashlight was already blazing, sweeping across the car's windows, even though the summer sun hadn't fully set. His other hand rested near his belt, not quite on his weapon, but close enough to remind everyone who held the power here. He was on the Atlanta Police Department, the kind of cop who talked about cleaning up the streets like it was a sacred mission. His personnel file told a different story. 17 complaints, excessive force against unarmed suspects, racial profiling during traffic stops, unlawful searches conducted without consent or probable cause, evidence that mysteriously appeared in suspects' vehicles after O'Connor searched them. Not one complaint had ever resulted in discipline. Not one investigation had ever moved forward. Every single accusation had been dismissed, buried, made to disappear. Sergeant Patrick O'Connor, Travis's uncle, had made sure of that. Travis believed he was untouchable, invincible, above the law he was sworn to enforce. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Behind him, Officer Riley Hayes hung back near the patrol car. She was fresh out of the academy, only months into her field training. Her body camera was active, a small green light blinking steadily on her chest. She had seen Travis do this before. The aggressive approach, the demeaning questions, the way he seemed to enjoy making people squirm. It made her uncomfortable, but she said nothing. She never said anything. Travis reached Aaliyah's window. He shone the flashlight directly into her face, an unnecessary act of dominance given the remaining daylight. License and registration. No greeting, no explanation, no courtesy, just a demand. Aaliyah kept her hands visible as she slowly reached for her purse. She moved with deliberate care, announcing each action before she made it. I'm reaching into my purse for my wallet. My license is inside. She handed over her documents with steady hands. Years of performing surgery on children's hearts had taught her to stay calm under impossible pressure. O'Connor studied the license, his lip curled into a sneer. Dr. Aaliyah Thompson. He pronounced the word doctor like it was profanity, like it was impossible, like it was a joke. A doctor driving a $90,000 Escalade. He made a show of looking around the interior. The leather seats, the wood trim, the subtle technology integrated into every surface. Let me guess. His voice dripped with contempt. Some kind of free clinic handing out pills to crackheads and welfare queens. Aaliyah's expression didn't change. Her voice remained level. I'm a pediatric cardiac surgeon at Grady Memorial Hospital. I specialize in congenital heart defects. Today I performed 3 surgeries, including a life-saving procedure on a 7-year-old girl whose lung collapsed during a soccer game. She paused. May I ask why I was stopped, officer? O'Connor ignored the question completely. His flashlight swung toward the passenger seat, briefly illuminating Darius's face. That's how long the light lingered. 1 second of looking at a black man in civilian clothes and deciding he wasn't worth a second glance. Who's this? O'Connor's voice was dismissive. The boyfriend? Her husband? O'Connor laughed, a short, ugly sound that dripped with disbelief. Husband. He dragged the word out. Right. Sure. Whatever you say. He said it like the concept was impossible. Like a black surgeon couldn't have a legitimate marriage. Like these people didn't belong here in this neighborhood, in this car, on this street. Darius sat perfectly still. His face revealed nothing. But behind those calm eyes, a decision was forming. He could end this right now. He could reach for the badge in the console, announce his title, and watch this officer crumble into apologies. But something stopped him. He thought about all the people who didn't have a badge to flash, all the black women who got pulled over and had no protection, all the citizens who faced officers like O'Connor and had no recourse. He needed to see. He needed to know the truth. What would Travis O'Connor do when he believed no one important was watching? So Darius stayed silent and he observed. O'Connor turned back to Aaliyah. Know why I stopped you, Doc? The title was soaked in sarcasm. I have no idea, officer. I wasn't speeding. My turn signals work. My registration is current. I've committed no traffic violation. Wrong. O'Connor stepped closer, his shadow falling over her like a threat. You failed to signal when changing lanes back there. That's a moving violation in Georgia. Fine up to $1,000. It was a lie. Aaliyah always signaled. Every lane change, every turn, every time. It was automatic, reflexive, the habit of a woman who knew that any small mistake could become an excuse. But she also knew that O'Connor's dash cam had malfunctioned. The investigation would later reveal that he had manually disabled it before initiating the stop. This wasn't his first fabricated violation. It wouldn't have been his last. I signaled, "Officer." I always signal. O'Connor's eyes narrowed. His jaw tightened. Are you calling me a liar? I'm telling you what happened. Something dangerous flickered across his face, the wounded pride of a man who wasn't used to being challenged, the anger of someone whose authority had been questioned. Get out of the car. I have the right to know. I said, get out now. His hand moved to his belt, closer to his weapon, a threat disguised as a casual gesture. Aaliyah knew what that meant. Every black person in America knew what that meant. The moment when a routine stop becomes something else entirely. The moment when your survival depends on the next seconds. She opened her door slowly, carefully, her hands visible the entire time. And in the passenger seat, Darius Thompson made his final decision. This had gone far enough. Aaliyah stepped onto the pavement with the careful movements of someone navigating a minefield. Her hands stayed visible. Her posture remained non-threatening. Every gesture was slow, deliberate, designed to give no excuse. Turn around, O'Connor commanded. Hands on the hood. Officer, I'd like to know what I'm being charged with. Obstruction, failure to comply, and I'm adding suspicious behavior because I feel like it. He grabbed her arm hard and spun her around. Now hands on the hood before I add resisting arrest. The metal was warm from the engine. Aaliyah felt it press against her palms as O'Connor shoved her forward, her cheek scraped against the polished surface. These hands saved a child's life this morning, she thought. These hands have saved 2,000 children. Now they were being treated like weapons. O'Connor began his pat-down. His hands moved slowly, invasively, lingering in places they had no reason to linger. It wasn't a search. It was a violation. A crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. Cars slowed to watch the spectacle. Phones appeared everywhere, recording, streaming, capturing every moment. Someone laughed. Someone else made a crude comment. The live stream comments flooded in, a mix of outrage and mockery and laughing emojis. But not one person stepped forward. Not one voice said, "Stop." O'Connor pulled out his handcuffs. "I'm a surgeon," Aaliyah said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I need my hands for my work. I operate on children. Please don't." Should have thought about that before you decided to get difficult. Click. The cold steel bit into her wrists, tighter than necessary, tight enough to leave bruises, tight enough to remind her who was in control. Aaliyah didn't cry out. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. But something inside her cracked, some small piece of dignity that she had fought her whole life to protect. She was a doctor, a healer, a woman who had dedicated her entire existence to saving lives. And here she was, face pressed against her own car, handcuffed by a man who saw nothing when he looked at her except the color of her skin. In the passenger seat, Darius had seen enough. His hand moved to the door handle. The door opened. "Officer." Darius's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "I need you to stop what you're doing right now." O'Connor spun around, flashlight aimed at Darius's chest. "Who the hell told you to get out of the car? That woman is my wife." Darius stepped forward slowly, his hands visible at his sides. "You have no probable cause for this stop. You have no legal basis for this detention, and you have absolutely no right to treat her this way." O'Connor's face contorted with rage. This wasn't supposed to happen. Suspects were supposed to be compliant, scared, submissive. They weren't supposed to challenge him. "I don't give a damn who you are." O'Connor stepped closer, his hand moving toward his belt. "This is my scene, my stop, my rules. Get back in the vehicle right now or you're going to join her. This isn't a scene. This is an illegal traffic stop conducted by an officer who disabled his own dash cam before pulling us over." Something flickered in O'Connor's eyes. A flash of recognition. A moment of fear. How did this man know about the dash cam? But the fear quickly transformed into anger. Aggression. The desperate fury of a cornered animal. Behind him, Officer Riley Hayes shifted nervously. "Travis," she said quietly, "maybe we should wait for backup. Something doesn't feel right about this." "Shut up, Hayes. I've got this under control." He turned back to Darius, drew himself up to his full height, tried to project authority. "Last chance. Get back in that car or you're under arrest. On what charge? Interference with police business? Obstruction of justice? I'll think of more on the way to the station." Darius didn't move. His voice remained calm, almost eerily calm. "You don't want to do this, officer. Is that a threat?" O'Connor stepped closer, his face inches from Darius's. "Are you threatening a police officer?" "I'm giving you an opportunity. Walk away right now. Uncuff my wife. Apologize for your behavior, and maybe you'll still have a career tomorrow." O'Connor laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. "You've got nerve. I'll give you that. But you picked the wrong cop to mess with." He grabbed Darius's arm. "Turn around. Hands behind your back. Don't touch me." "Resisting arrest?" O'Connor shouted for the cameras. "Everyone see that? He's resisting." He wrenched Darius's arms backward with unnecessary force. The handcuffs came out. Click, click. Chief of Police, Darius Thompson, years on the force, the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in the city of Atlanta, was now on his knees on a public sidewalk, handcuffed by one of his own officers, an officer who still had absolutely no idea. O'Connor shoved Darius down next to Aaliyah, husband and wife, side by side on the hot pavement, their wrists bound behind their backs. The crowd had swelled to nearly 60 people now. The live streams were exploding. Thousands of viewers watched in real time as a cop humiliated what appeared to be an innocent black couple. Comments flooded in. Some expressed outrage. Others laughed. None of them understood what they were really witnessing. O'Connor stood over his prisoners like a conquering hero, his chest puffed out, his chin raised, the absolute picture of a man who believed he had won. 2 suspects, he announced loudly for the cameras. 1 stolen vehicle. Hell of a night. He grabbed his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 52. I have 2 suspects under arrest at Peachtree and Roswell. Possible vehicle theft. Both suspects are in custody, requesting transport. Copy. Unit 52. Backup and transport en route. Arrest, not detention, not investigation. Travis O'Connor had just formally arrested the police chief of Atlanta, and he was proud of himself. Aaliyah turned her head toward her husband. Her cheek scraped against the rough pavement. "Are you okay?" she whispered. Darius's eyes never left O'Connor. "This will be over soon." "How do you know?" "Because backup is coming and at least one of those officers will recognize me." Before Aaliyah could respond, O'Connor walked to the rear of the Escalade. He popped the trunk without asking permission. Another Fourth Amendment violation to add to the growing list. Inside the trunk were 3 items: a gym bag filled with workout clothes, a case of bottled water, and a folded American flag in a glass display case. O'Connor picked up the flag, examined it like it was evidence of a crime. "What's this?" He held it up for the crowd to see. "Steal this from a veteran's funeral. A parade?" A gasp went through the witnesses. "That's a burial flag," someone shouted. "Have you lost your mind?" Aaliyah's voice cracked for the first time all night. "That flag belonged to my father-in-law, Staff Sergeant Reginald Thompson. Years in the United States Army. He served in Vietnam and Desert Storm. He earned a Bronze Star and 2 Purple Hearts. He died surrounded by his family." Tears streamed down her face. That flag was folded by soldiers in full dress uniform. It was handed to my mother-in-law with the words, "On behalf of a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved ones' honorable and faithful service." She drew a shaky breath. "It's the most sacred thing we own." O'Connor looked at the flag, then at Aaliyah. Then he dropped it back into the trunk like it was garbage. Probably stole that too. In that moment, something fundamental shifted inside Darius Thompson. The curiosity was gone. The clinical detachment was gone. The desire to observe and document gone. What replaced it was cold, absolute fury. This man had mocked his wife, had degraded her profession, had violated her rights, and now he had desecrated the memory of Darius's father. Staff Sergeant Reginald Thompson had bled for this country, had sacrificed years of his life defending the freedoms that Travis O'Connor was now trampling. That flag had been folded with precision and reverence. It had been presented with honor. It represented everything good and noble about service and sacrifice, and this officer, this disgrace to the badge, had thrown it away like trash. Darius closed his eyes, breathed deeply, let the rage settle into something harder, colder, more useful. When he opened his eyes, his decision was made. Travis O'Connor wouldn't just lose his job, he would lose everything. The sirens grew louder. Blue and red lights appeared around the corner. Backup had arrived, and with it, the truth was about to be revealed. 2 patrol cars rounded the corner and pulled to a stop behind O'Connor's vehicle. 4 officers emerged. The first among them was Sergeant Langston Brooks, years on the force, recently promoted by Chief Darius Thompson personally. Brooks had received the email just 1 week ago. He remembered the exact wording. "Congratulations on your well-deserved promotion. Your dedication to community policing represents the best of what this department can be." The email had been signed, Darius A. Thompson, Chief of Police. Brooks approached the scene with professional calm. He surveyed the situation. 2 suspects on the ground, O'Connor standing over them, a crowd of witnesses, phones everywhere. Then his eyes landed on the man in handcuffs. His feet stopped moving. His blood turned to ice. Hayes. He grabbed Riley's arm, pulling her aside. His voice was barely a whisper. "The man on the ground. Look at him. Really look." Hayes glanced over. Travis's suspects. He said they were driving a stolen. Look at his face. She looked. The color drained from her cheeks. "Oh my God, that's Chief Thompson." Brooks's voice was strangled. "Darius Thompson, Chief of Police. Travis just arrested our Chief of Police." Hayes' hand flew to her mouth. Her body camera suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. "He doesn't know," she breathed. "Travis has no idea. No, he doesn't." Brooks started moving, but he's about to find out. He crossed the distance to the scene in 5 long strides. "O'Connor, stop everything you're doing right now." O'Connor turned, annoyance written across his face. This was his moment, his glory. He didn't appreciate the interruption. "Brooks, what's your problem? I've got everything under. Do you have any idea who you just arrested? 2 suspects. Stolen vehicle, resisting arrest, open and shut." Brooks ignored him completely. He dropped to one knee beside Darius, his hands already searching for the handcuff key. "Chief Thompson, sir, are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" The word detonated like a bomb. "Chief?" O'Connor's mouth opened. No sound came out. His brain tried to process the information, tried to reconcile the man kneeling in handcuffs with the photograph that hung in every precinct in the city. The photograph he walked past every single day. The photograph he never bothered to look at closely because all black faces looked the same to him. "Chief?" The word came out as a croak. "What do you mean, Chief?" Brooks was fumbling with the handcuffs, his fingers trembling so badly he could barely hold the key. "Chief Darius Thompson, Atlanta Police Department. The man whose signature is on my promotion letter. The man who runs this entire department." He finally got the cuffs off. Darius rose slowly to his feet, rotating his wrists. Red marks circled his skin where the metal had bitten in. "The man," Brooks continued, "that you just arrested." O'Connor's face underwent a transformation that would haunt witnesses for years to come. First came confusion. His brow furrowed, trying desperately to make the pieces fit. Then recognition. Slow, horrible recognition as the face in front of him finally matched the photograph in his memory. Then terror. Pure animal terror as the full weight of what he had done came crashing down like an avalanche. Chief Thompson." His voice climbed an octave. But I couldn't." He couldn't finish the sentence. He couldn't say what he was really thinking. "You're just a black man. Just another face. Just another nobody who doesn't matter." That's what he had seen. That's all he had allowed himself to see. Darius stood motionless for a long moment. He let the silence stretch. Let O'Connor squirm. Let the reality sink in. Then he spoke. I am Darius Thompson. His voice carried across the crowd with perfect clarity. Not shouting, not angry, just absolute. Chief of Police, Atlanta Police Department. Days in this position. He took one step toward O'Connor, then another. And you, Officer O'Connor, just arrested your commanding officer. O'Connor stumbled backward. His legs seemed to lose all strength. Sir, I didn't know. I didn't recognize you. The light was. That's exactly the problem. Darius's voice cut like surgical steel. You didn't recognize me. And you know why? Because you never looked. You never bothered to see me as a person. You saw a black man in a nice car, and you saw a target. Another step forward. O'Connor retreated again. My wife is a pediatric cardiac surgeon. She has saved over 2,000 children's lives. Today alone, she operated on 3 kids, including a 7-year-old girl who would be dead right now, if not for her hands. He gestured toward Aaliyah, who was being helped to her feet by Brooks. You threw her against the hood of her own car. You called her a thief. You questioned her right to exist in her own neighborhood. You handcuffed her hands, the hands that save children's lives because the color of her skin offended you. And you had no idea who I was. You didn't care who I was, because to you, we're all the same, all invisible, all worthless, all guilty until proven innocent. And sometimes, not even then. O'Connor's knees buckled. He sank to the pavement. Not because anyone pushed him, because his body simply gave up. The weight of his actions pressed down on him like a physical force. He ended up kneeling on the exact same spot where he had forced Darius and Aaliyah to kneel. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. Brooks helped Aaliyah over. Her wrists were raw and red, already darkening into bruises. Dr. Thompson, ma'am, I am so deeply sorry for what happened here tonight. The apology should come from him. Aaliyah's eyes locked onto O'Connor. Not from you. She walked toward the kneeling officer. Her surgical scrubs were dirty now, stained with grime from the pavement. Her face bore the marks of humiliation, but her voice was still. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. O'Connor looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. Please, I have a family. I have 2 kids. So did Lila, the 7-year-old I operated on this morning. She has parents who love her. She has a little brother who looks up to her. She almost didn't get to grow up because her lung collapsed on a soccer field. Aaliyah crouched down to meet his eyes. I saved her. I gave her back to her family. That's what I do. That's what these hands do. She held up her wrists, showing him the red marks from his handcuffs. What do your hands do, Officer O'Connor? What have you ever given anyone except fear? Except humiliation? Except the knowledge that a badge can be used as a weapon against the innocent? She stood up and walked back to her husband's side. O'Connor remained on his knees, sobbing. The crowd had grown massive now. 70, 80, maybe 100 people. News vans were arriving. Cameras and microphones materialized. Helicopters circled overhead. But something had shifted in the atmosphere. The laughing emojis were gone from the live stream comments. The mocking had stopped. What replaced it was something else entirely. Outrage, solidarity, a collective recognition that what they had witnessed was fundamentally wrong. Someone in the crowd started clapping. 1 person, then 2, then 10. Then a wave of applause rolling through the witnesses like thunder. Justice karma, get him, Chief. Darius raised his hand and the crowd fell silent. I need everyone to hear what I'm about to say. The cameras zoomed in, the microphones extended, every phone angled toward him. Tonight, my wife and I were arrested by an officer in the department I lead. My wife, Dr. Aaliyah Thompson, is the surgeon who has saved more than 2,000 children's lives. Tonight, she was pulled from her car, thrown against the hood, searched, and handcuffed like a common criminal. He paused, let the words sink in. Not because she broke any law, not because she posed any threat, but because she is a black woman driving a nice car in a wealthy neighborhood, because Officer Travis O'Connor decided that people who look like us don't belong here. His gaze swept across the crowd, the cameras, the witnesses. I could tell you this was an isolated incident, a single bad apple, an unfortunate misunderstanding. He shook his head slowly. But that would be a lie, and I am done lying to protect a broken system. He turned to address the cameras directly. Officer Travis O'Connor has 17 complaints in his personnel file, 17 documented incidents of misconduct over years, excessive force, racial profiling, unlawful searches, fabricated evidence. The crowd murmured. The reporters scribbled. Every single complaint was dismissed, buried, made to disappear by Officer O'Connor's supervising sergeant, his own uncle. This wasn't a failure of one officer. This was a failure of an entire system designed to protect abusers rather than serve citizens. He paused. That system ends tonight. Officer O'Connor is suspended immediately, pending a full investigation. His badge and weapon have been confiscated. I am personally referring this case to the Federal Department of Justice, not local prosecutors, not internal affairs, federal prosecutors who have no connection to this department, because this case will not be buried. This officer will not be protected. Justice will be served. Officer Riley Hayes stepped forward from the shadows. She had been standing apart from O'Connor, watching everything unfold. Months on the job. Months of seeing her training officer profile and harass and intimidate. Months of saying nothing. That ended tonight. Chief Thompson, sir. Darius turned. Hayes took a deep breath. This was the moment, the choice that would define her entire career. I want to state for the record that I witnessed everything tonight. Every word Officer O'Connor spoke, every action he took, and I failed to intervene when I should have. Her voice wavered, but didn't break. My body camera recorded the entire incident from the moment we initiated the stop. The footage is automatically uploaded to department servers. It cannot be deleted, altered, or tampered with. She straightened her spine. And I am prepared to testify under oath in court before God and everyone to everything I saw tonight. O'Connor's head snapped up. His red-rimmed eyes found his partner. Riley, please. We're partners. You're supposed to have my back. We were partners. Hayes' voice hardened. But I won't protect someone who doesn't deserve the badge. Not anymore. She turned back to Darius. I know I should have spoken up sooner. I know my silence made me complicit. But I want to be part of the solution now, whatever that takes, whatever it costs. Darius studied her for a long moment. What you did tonight, staying silent, was wrong. You understand that? Yes, sir, I do. But what you're doing now takes courage. The kind of courage this department desperately needs. He extended his hand. Hayes shook it. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. The crowd erupted in applause once more. O'Connor was pulled to his feet by Brooks. His own handcuffs, the same ones he had used on Aaliyah, were placed around his wrists. Travis O'Connor, you are under arrest. Deprivation of civil rights under color of law, false arrest, assault, evidence tampering, filing a false police report. Brooks began reciting the Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As they led him toward the patrol car, O'Connor turned back one final time. Chief, please. I'm sorry. Darius's voice was ice. You're right about one thing, Officer O'Connor. You didn't know who I was, but you knew my wife was black. You knew she was in a nice car. And you decided based on nothing but that she deserved to be humiliated. That's not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's who you are, and now everyone knows it. The patrol car door slammed shut. The crowd parted as the vehicle pulled away, carrying Travis O'Connor toward a future he never imagined, a future behind bars. Darius turned to his wife. The cameras kept rolling, but for a moment it was just the two of them. Are you okay? Aaliyah managed a small, exhausted smile. I've had better nights. He pulled her into his arms, held her tight. Let years of marriage speak louder than any words. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I should have stopped it sooner. You stopped it exactly when you needed to. She pulled back to look at him. Now, the whole world knows what happens in the shadows. Now everyone can see. Darius nodded slowly. This wasn't just about one corrupt officer. This was about a system, a pattern, a disease that had been allowed to fester for far too long. Tonight, they had exposed it to the light. Tomorrow, the real work of healing would begin. Travis O'Connor stood before a federal judge. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity. National news cameras lined every wall. Reporters from every major network jostled for position. The story had exploded across social media. The racist cop who arrested his own chief without knowing it. Millions had watched the footage. Millions more had shared it. The hashtag Justice for Aaliyah had trended worldwide. The charges were read aloud, one by one. Each word another nail in the coffin of O'Connor's career, his freedom, his life as he knew it. Deprivation of civil rights under color of law. False arrest and imprisonment, filing a false police report, evidence tampering. The investigation had confirmed that O'Connor manually disabled his dash cam before initiating the stop, aggravated assault, conspiracy to violate civil rights. The federal prosecutor rose to address the court. Your Honor, the defendant is not simply a bad officer who made a mistake. He is the product and the symbol of a system designed to protect abusers while destroying the communities they claim to serve. She held up a thick folder. 17 complaints over years. 17 victims who came forward to report harassment, profiling, assault, and abuse of power. 17 human beings who trusted that the justice system would protect them. She let the folder drop onto the table with a heavy thud. Every single complaint was dismissed, buried by the defendant's uncle, Sergeant Patrick O'Connor, who has also been arrested and charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy. She turned to face the judge directly. The United States requests the maximum sentence. Nothing less will restore faith in the institutions that failed so catastrophically here. O'Connor's defense attorney offered arguments for leniency, first-time felony conviction, years of otherwise acceptable service, family responsibilities. The judge listened patiently. Then he delivered his response. Mr. O'Connor, I have reviewed the evidence extensively. I have watched every minute of every video. I have read every complaint that was filed against you and buried by your protectors. He leaned forward. You had 17 opportunities to change your behavior, 17 warnings that your conduct was unacceptable, 17 chances to become the officer you swore an oath to be. His voice hardened. You ignored every single one. You chose time and again to abuse your authority, to target citizens based on the color of their skin, to humiliate and degrade people who had done nothing wrong. You don't deserve leniency. You deserve accountability. The sentence came down. 7 years in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, permanent ban from any law enforcement position in the United States, peace officer certification permanently revoked. As the bailiffs led O'Connor away in handcuffs, the same model he had used on Aaliyah, the courtroom erupted in applause. But O'Connor wasn't the only one who faced justice. Sergeant Patrick O'Connor, Travis's uncle and protector, was arrested at his home in front of his wife and grandchildren. The charges: obstruction of justice, conspiracy to deprive civil rights, dereliction of duty, evidence tampering. For years, Patrick had buried complaints against his nephew. He had intimidated witnesses. He had falsified records. He had ensured that Travis never faced consequences for his actions. His sentence: 3 years in federal prison, complete forfeiture of his pension, years of service erased. The domino effect continued. The police union that had protected officers like Travis O'Connor came under federal investigation. Internal review processes were overhauled. Civilian oversight boards were given genuine authority. 6 previous victims came forward with lawsuits. People who had been profiled, harassed, and brutalized by Travis O'Connor over the years. People who had been too afraid to speak out before. The combined settlements totaled $4.2 million. Chief Darius Thompson announced the most comprehensive reform package in Atlanta Police Department history. Body cameras would be mandatory for every traffic stop, every citizen interaction, every moment on duty. No exceptions, no malfunctions. Every citizen complaint would trigger an automatic external review by civilian oversight. No more internal investigations. No more protecting the brotherhood. An early warning system would flag officers with multiple complaints for immediate intervention, retraining, or termination. The results spoke for themselves. Within years, citizen complaints against Atlanta PD dropped by 34%. Misconduct findings increased by 60%, not because there was more misconduct, but because it was finally being documented, investigated, and addressed. The system was changing slowly, painfully, but it was changing. Officer Riley Hayes testified at both trials. She held nothing back. She described every stop, every harassment, every abuse she had witnessed during her months with O'Connor. She named names. She cited dates. She provided evidence. The backlash was swift and brutal. The police union tried to silence her. Anonymous death threats appeared in her locker. Her tires were slashed. A dead rat was left on her windshield. She didn't flinch. She didn't waver. She didn't back down. At a department ceremony, Chief Thompson personally pinned a commendation medal on her uniform. "Officer Hayes showed us what real courage looks like," he said. "Not the absence of fear, but the decision to do what's right despite it." Hayes was promoted to lead the newly created Community Relations Unit. She now develops training programs on de-escalation, implicit bias, and constitutional policing. She speaks at academies across the country. When asked why she chose to testify against her own partner, she always gives the same answer: "Because staying silent made me complicit, and I refuse to be complicit anymore." After years of trying, after countless disappointments and tears, they were finally expecting a child. When their daughter was born, they named her after Darius's father, Staff Sergeant Reginald Thompson, the Army veteran whose burial flag had been thrown around like garbage by Travis O'Connor, Naya Reginald Thompson. She came into the world screaming, healthy, perfect. She didn't know the story yet. The story of the night before she was announced to the world. The night her parents knelt on hot pavement in handcuffs. The night they refused to be victims. One day they would tell her, and she would know that her parents didn't accept injustice, didn't stay silent, didn't give up. She would know that they stood up, that they fought back, that they changed things. Dirty Cop handcuffed a black surgeon and her husband. He had no idea who he just arrested. That's the title of this story. But here's what the title doesn't tell you. Travis O'Connor looked at Aaliyah Thompson and saw a target. He saw a black woman in an expensive car and decided she didn't belong. He saw skin color and made assumptions. He saw an opportunity to exercise power over someone he believed couldn't fight back. He didn't see the 2,000 children she had saved. He didn't see the years her husband had dedicated to justice. He didn't see the family they were building together. He saw what he wanted to see, what he had trained himself to see. And he was wrong about everything. But here's the part of this story that keeps me up at night. The part I need you to truly understand. The worst thing about that night wasn't that Travis O'Connor arrested the police chief. The worst thing is that he had treated hundreds of other people exactly the same way. People who didn't have a police chief in the passenger seat. People who didn't have cameras recording. People who didn't have the resources to fight back. People whose stories were never told. Aaliyah Thompson was lucky. She had witnesses. She had evidence. She had connections that most people don't have. What about everyone else? What about the black teenager who gets pulled over for driving suspiciously in his own neighborhood? What about the Latino family whose car gets searched for smelling like marijuana when there's nothing there? What about every person of color who has been humiliated, harassed, and violated by officers who believe they are above the law? Justice shouldn't depend on who you're married to. Respect shouldn't require a badge or a title. Human dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're born with. The data tells a story we cannot ignore. Black drivers are 20% more likely to be pulled over than white drivers. That's according to the Stanford Open Policing Project, which analyzed over 27 million traffic stops. Black drivers are twice as likely to have their cars searched, even though they're less likely to be found with contraband. More than 1,000 people were killed by police in America. Black Americans were killed at nearly 3 times the rate of white Americans. These aren't opinions. These aren't political talking points. These are numbers. These are statistics. These are human lives. These are someone's mother, someone's father, someone's daughter, someone's son. So what can you do? First, know your rights. In most states, you can refuse a vehicle search without a warrant or probable cause. The ACLU offers a free guide to understanding your rights during traffic stops. I've linked it in the description below. Second, record everything. In all 50 states, it is legal to film police officers performing their duties in public spaces. Your phone is a tool for accountability. Don't be afraid to use it. Third, support civilian oversight. Research shows that police departments with independent civilian review boards have significantly fewer incidents of misconduct. Find out if your city has one. If it doesn't, ask your local representatives why. Fourth, share this story, not for views, not for likes, not for algorithms, but because somewhere right now, at this very moment, someone is being treated exactly the way Aaliyah was, and they need to know they're not alone. Aaliyah Thompson is 2 years old now. She runs through parks chasing butterflies. She laughs at everything. She lights up every room she enters. She doesn't know the story yet. The story of the night her parents knelt on a sidewalk in handcuffs while a crowd watched and did nothing. One day, Darius and Aaliyah will sit her down and tell her everything. She'll ask, "What did you do?" And they'll say, "We stood up. We spoke out. We refused to accept injustice, and we changed things." That's the legacy they're building. Not a viral video, not a hashtag. A world that's a little bit better for the next generation. Travis O'Connor thought his badge made him untouchable. He thought people who looked like Darius and Aaliyah didn't matter. He was wrong about everything. And now in a federal prison cell, he has 7 years to think about exactly how wrong he was. So here's my question for you. Have you ever witnessed injustice? What did you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it made you think, if it made you want to do something, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone who needs to see it. Because every view is a vote for accountability. Every share is a reminder that we're watching. And every comment is proof that we refuse to stay silent. Never underestimate the person standing quietly in front of you.